the Cinnabar. Now, not long ago I did an episode where I showed a couple of just dandy early Colts that we had purchased for one of our most loyal viewers and customers, and part of the deal was that he wanted me to test fire them before he took delivery. Well, we're going to be hand delivering these here shortly on our way to a big show back in Colorado, so it's time to load up some rounds and get out there and see how these old girls are shooting. We're going to start off today with this just beautiful 1860 Colt revolver with a Richards Mason conversion cartridge cylinder in it. Now this one's in great shape. You can see a lot of original blue on this thing. Mechanically excellent, has an excellent bore. Just a really superb example of one of these 1860 cartridge guns. Now I talked a little bit in that episode about the history of these, so I won't go into it in depth in this episode, but you know, these in about 1870 the Smith & Wesson patent for drilled through cylinders ran out, and Colt was kind of behind the eight ball. They didn't have anything ready to go off the shelf to convert from the old cap and ball type revolvers to our metallic cartridge revolvers that were possible now with that patent expired. So what they did is they took some of these older version revolvers and converted them over to cartridge. Now, so this one has the type 1, and we can tell a type 1 Richards Mason conversion by the rear sight back here on the recoil shield. Afterwards they didn't have that. The hammer went through the recoil shield, so they had to move that rear sight up to the hammer itself. Okay, so what we have now is a revolver. Instead of being a cap and ball, is loaded for a proprietary cartridge, the 44 Colt. Now the 44 Colt original is not the same 44 Colt that's produced today, so it's going to make it a little more difficult as far as coming up with ammunition to shoot this old girl. We're going to have to make up our own. You see, the originals were actually, even though they called them a 44 Colt, they were actually a 45 caliber. And what's produced today, the reproductions that are produced today, are actually a 44 caliber, or in reality, like most 44 calibers, they're a 43 caliber, 429, 430. So we're going to make some up today and take this old girl out and put a few rounds through it and just see how she does. Now, one of the things you might recognize if you're a Winchester aficionado is the name Mason. Now this is a Richards Mason conversion of William Mason, who was really one of the most influential firearms designers of the 19th century. Really isn't known unless you're really seriously into firearms history, but was involved in the design of a whole lot of iconic firearms. Now the Colts that he worked on, and this is one of the earlier ones, this conversion, range from this conversion to later. Now they're coming up with a gun that's designed from day one to take metallic cartridges. Of course, I'm talking about the Model P, or what we call today the single action army revolver, and William Mason was instrumental in that. And then he went on to be the primary designer in the early double actions, the 1877, and its big brother, the 1878. And then sometime after that, he was hired away from Colt by Winchester. And one of the first things he did is create the Mason prototype revolvers. Winchester was looking to get into the revolver business and made some just really interesting revolvers that never saw the market. And there are several of them over in the Cody Firearms Museum. In fact, the curator over there just did an episode on some of those conversions, or those prototypes that William Mason worked on just recently. Now, after that, he went on to be the person who was principally responsible for taking the John Browning prototypes, which were really fairly crude if you've ever seen any of the original Browning prototypes, and made them into and refined them into the 1885, the 1886, the 92, the 94, 95 that we're used to seeing today. He really did some tremendous work on taking those ideas of Browning's and really sleeking them up and making them look like they do what we recognize today as the Browning designed Winchesters. Now, as I mentioned earlier, we can't just go out today and buy some modern 44 Colt cowboy action loads to shoot through our original conversion revolvers. You see, the ammunition is made differently today. And in the early days of metallic cartridge ammunition, heeled-based bullets were fairly common, and today they've gone out of style because they're much more difficult to load. But the heeled-based bullets, for those of you who aren't familiar with them, have two diameters. Okay, so the portion of the bullet that fits inside the cartridge case, if you can see my handy artistry here, it's a smaller diameter. It matches the inside of the cartridge case. In this instance, about 429, 430, and the upper portion of the bullet that sticks out of the top of the cartridge is the same diameter as the outside of the cartridge. In this case, about 452. So actually, as I mentioned, about a 45 caliber projectile. Now, what's happened today is, to make things simpler, the modern reproduction ammo and the modern reproduction firearms that are designed for 44 Colt, they've done away with this heel-based design and just gone to a 430 or 429 in that area, just about like with the 4440 ammunition, which has a straight wall. So of course the bores on the reproduction guns are around 430, and the bores on these originals are out there around 452. So if we take a bullet now, this is a bullet that's sized at 430, and put it in this gun, it just slides up and down the barrel. Obviously that wouldn't shoot worth a darn. We'd just kind of bounce it down the barrel and lead the grooves up quite a lot. So we've had to come up with our own bullets here. We had to drop our own heel-based bullets, and as you can see, they don't just fall through. These are actually unsized, but they're falling out at about 451, 452, right where they need to be. And the heel on them was actually a little big. We actually had to use a bit of a collet to squeeze that down to get it to 430. Now that's one of the reasons that heel-based bullets have really fallen out of favor. They're really difficult to size and lube, and particularly difficult to crimp. Now if you think about trying to put a crimp die on this, we've got the outside diameter of the bullet the same size as the case, and we want to crimp that case down. We're going to a conventional crimp die is going to shave off the edges of that bullet as we go down to crimp it. So we actually have to use kind of a collet to crimp that, and it's a complicated thing to do. Sizing these isn't a whole lot of fun, either the outside portion or the inside portion. So I understand why the modern reproductions have gone to a straight-sided bullet rather than a heel-based, but it does make things a little confusing if you don't understand that. Now I would dearly love to show you our process for loading these heel-based bullets, because it is an interesting process if you're not familiar with it. But alas, YouTube's new communist community guidelines restrict us from posting any new content that shows how to manufacture ammunition. And of course, I guess you can see how this kind of sensitive secret information falling into the hands of some of you subversive insurrectionist types might make the world unsafe for democracy. So we've gone to the extraordinary measure of securing all our sensitive reloading information and locking it in our garage behind a bud ugly green colored Corvette, safe from the prying eyes of any sketchy family members who might be tempted to sell that information to their Chinese business associates. Okay, enough with the political satire. We can't show you, but off camera we'll get these things loaded up and take it out, and let's just see how this old girl shoots. Okay, now we've got a handful of correct early 44 Colt cartridges here. Let's make sure they're going to chamber all right in our revolver here. Yep, no problem at all. Okay, so at the risk of giving away any state secrets, I just wanted to kind of show you real quickly how we have to crimp these heeled base bullets, and it's a kind of a pain to set up the dies. But what we have to do here is squeeze that crimp in from the side. So we have a collet in here that's split down 4 sides, and that as this shell holder, and you notice it's a completely different kind of shell holder. It's not really even a shell holder, it's just kind of a plunger. As we set the loaded cartridge, and this is just a dummy we have here, on top here, and it pushes that bullet up through that opened up collet. So it's open now, and then when it's timed just perfectly, then this brass base here pushes up on the bottom of the collet, shoves that collet upward and squeezes it together, and then puts that kind of a funky crimp on it just like this. And of course then it's stuck in there, and we have a little plunger here that we have to tap it out with. So we can all be very thankful that the heeled base bullet that was so popular in the 19th century went the way of the dodo birds. Okay, now I'm kind of excited. We've got some ammo. Let's go out and see how this old girl shoots. Now, since this is a Colt episode, we've got an added bonus today. You see, I need to test fire this first model Colt Lightning rifle in 3840 that I've been working on for a fella from back east. He wants to use it in cowboy action shooting, but this thing came in just a basket case. I mean, it's just one of those, the more I got into it, the more I found wrong. I've had to replace parts, I've had to repair parts. The bore was shot out of it, the chamber was just pitted horribly. It's got a new bore from John Taylor Machine over in Idaho. He does an excellent job with relining, so it's time to test this thing out and see if it cycles really well in the shop with dummy rounds, but the test is going to be how it does with live ammo. So let's give it a shot here. All right, first one cycled. All right, looks like it might just make a dandy cowboy action shooter. And that's not too bad a 5-shot group offhand with that brand new John Taylor bore, especially considering we just pounded those sights in by eye at the shop there. So I think that's going to be a dandy cowboy action shooting Colt Lightning rifle. Alright, so it's the moment of truth. And of course, we loaded these with black powder, tried to stay as close to the original as possible. A soft lead bullet, about 10 on the hardness scale. These have a boxer primer. Probably most of the originals at that time would have been inside primed or Benet primed. But pretty close to original as we could get. Now, I was talking to a friend of mine who has one of these 1860 conversions, and he was telling me that they have a reputation for not shooting very accurately. Apparently they shot pretty well with the round balls, but the conical bullets, because of the gain twist in the rifling on these early Colts, the theory is that makes them not shoot as accurately as they did with the round balls. Now his has been cut down to 5-inch, and he says his is as accurate as can be, but of course a lot of that gain twist was lost there. So we're going to test that theory out. I'm just going to load one to start with and give it a shot. Okay, here we go. I love it. I got to admit, I get a little bit nervous on the first shot on a real valuable firearm like this, but that was right on. We even hit the steel. It's a little low, it looks like. All right, we'll load up. Well, I didn't have many of this brass, and of course, this isn't a gun we're going to plink with all day long. So I'm going to load up 5 here, and we'll just see how we do on that other piece of steel. See if we can group them up worth a darn. Actually, I'm going to load up 6. We don't need to worry about, we're not going to carry it with the hammer on a primer. All right, so here we go. Uh-oh, I bragged too soon. I didn't even get on steel there. Wow! Wonder where it's shooting now, I can't tell. I'm gonna shoot high, I think. Well, maybe he was right. I'm gonna have to get up a little closer, maybe. Well, that's disappointing, I have to admit. Okay, we've got a couple of more here. I'm going to shoot low this time. That was the trick. I was shooting over it. We'll shoot a little low again. There we go. We found our mark now. I've got a couple of more rounds, and of course, we're going to have to shoot a couple milk jugs before we go home. Alright, so we've moved up a little closer now, give myself a fighting chance at actually hitting these jugs. We've just got a couple of rounds left. Oh, yeah, she's shooting really high. Oh, clear over the top. Now, it just goes to show even an old Winchester guy can enjoy shooting pieces of Colt history like these, even the ones that may not be all that accurate. Thanks for joining us today. Hope you've enjoyed this episode. Until next time, happy trails from the Cinnabar.